Now, representatives from 46 nations, including Australia, are meeting in Washington to discuss the threat of terrorists gaining access to nuclear material.
For more, Graham Allison, Director of the Belfer Centre at the Harvard Kennedy School, joins us now from Harvard. Good morning and thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
This is an historic meeting, not only because of the subject that's under discussion, but I think it's the largest meeting, US-led meeting of world leaders since 1945.
It's absolutely a big deal. It's kind of hard to get your head around it, but this is the largest gathering called by an American president since the gathering that created the United Nations. And the focus of this event, President Obama believes, is as important as the previous event, namely the possibility that terrorists would get a small nuclear bomb out of the arsenal of one of the current countries or material from which they could make a bomb, and you would, instead of in Mumbai, have a nuclear Mumbai, or instead of 9/11, a nuclear 9/11. So I think this is an extremely important meeting.
It's interesting that that's the subject under discussion because, while I can't speak for every member in the world, I wouldn't have thought that was a top-of-mind anxiety for many people, the threat of nuclear terrorism. But clearly it's significant enough for Barack Obama to call such a major meeting. Does he have the agreement of other countries with him? Do they also believe it's that important and that dangerous?
Oh, an extremely good question. I mean, fortunately, most people find this so far-fetched that they, it's almost inconceivable. And actually, psychologically, to imagine that a terrorist would explode a bomb devastating the heart of Tokyo or of even of Melbourne or New York, it's just, it's too much to cope with emotionally. But it is the responsibility of our governments to protect us from the most severe threats that are real. And President Obama is absolutely correct, I believe, in his judgment that this is the single largest threat to the civilized societies today. It's just hard to imagine, but if a nuclear bomb exploded in Mumbai, our whole view of the world is going to change fundamentally. Our confidence in living in cities, the whole notion of globalization as we know it. So I would say applause for identifying the problem and putting it at the top of the agenda. And he'll have a hard sell with some of the people who are gathered because this is it seems like a far-fetched idea, but analytically, if you take the step-by-step from 9/11 to a nuclear 9/11, the only single difference, one single difference between 9/11 that killed 3,000 people and a nuclear 9/11 that could kill 300,000 people is terrorists getting their hands on a nuclear bomb.
So does the presupposition of the US President Barack Obama, is it that if any country possesses weapons-grade material, that in itself poses enough of a risk that somehow a terrorist could get his or her hands on it?
Absolutely. Vulnerable nuclear material anywhere is a threat to us as citizens everywhere because the consequence of a al-Qaeda group, but if you take in your neighborhood, Shinriku earlier, the people who were extremely interested in nuclear weapons and material, or if you take LET, the group that did Mumbai, if a nuclear bomb explodes in any city everywhere, if you ask what's going to happen to trade, what's going to happen to our sense of globalization, what's going to happen to confidence of other people living in cities, it would change our world. So I think that the fact that it's possible for the leaders who are gathered there, they have in their power, if they're prepared to do it, to lock down all material in their country to a gold standard or to eliminate it, as Ukraine has said that it's it's going to announce today that all the material from which terrorists could make a bomb in Ukraine is going to be removed from Ukraine within 2 years. Then we could put a check by that box. There's then a lot of other boxes to be addressed.
Well, indeed. I mean, because while Ukraine might say that it'll get rid of all that weapons-grade material, a country like the United States certainly won't. And it would want to be believed, wouldn't it, when it says, look, we've got it locked down, it's in safe storage, no one will be able to get their hands on it. How are we going to be able to believe any country when the country says that?
That's, again, an extremely good question. And I think what will try to emerge from this summit, if they're successful, is some basis on which I'll have a reason for believing that you did it, and you'll have some reason to believe it that I did it.
So well, that was called mutually assured destruction once upon a time.
Well, it was called mutual assured destruction, but maybe we need a new MAD, which would be called mutual assured detection.
Well, OK, well, that raises an interesting issue, and that's going to be about some sort of mandated inspection regime that every country would have to sign up to. Do you see that as actually happening?
Unfortunately, I don't think they are going to get that out of this summit, but if it was mine to choose, I would say that should be a universal requirement for the United States and for every other state that continues to have nuclear weapons or weapons usable material. Now, getting from here to there will be a stretch, and many of the countries will be very nervous about agreeing to such an arrangement.
All right. Well, just finally then, Graham Allison, what in your view would be the right outcome, a good outcome from this two-day summit? What do you need to see to be reassured that this has been not a waste of time?
Well, I would say the bottom line is to find nuclear material or weapons that were previously vulnerable to theft that have now been eliminated or locked down. So in the case of Turkey, which is, I think, making an announcement today, there used to be weapons usable material there. They've already taken the step of eliminating that. So that's, I would say, a great success. Chile is another interesting example where there was weapons usable material which was removed in the middle of the earthquake, amazingly. So bottom line for me is if there were vulnerable nuclear weapons and materials which have become more secure as a consequence of this, and then we'll hope that the effect of this will be a raisingness of consciousness for the leaders everywhere, so they'll do even more and even faster. And I'd like to get to something like what you suggested, which is that there be enough transparency about this that I would have some reason to sleep more comfortably about the weapons in Pakistan or elsewhere.
Graham Allison, really good to talk to you today. Thanks so much.